So what happens when you strip everything away? I mean, everything. No time, no sound, no other people. What's even left of a self? We're about to dive into this incredible thought experiment about reality, consciousness, and what it means to be human. And it all centers on one man, one stone, and a 10-year mission into the absolute void.
Our whole journey really begins and ends with this one single sentence. It's the key that unlocks this entire story. And this isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. For the man at the center of all this, it became his direct, observable, and totally inescapable reality.
So, let's get into it. The observation protocol. You've got a man, a vault, and what sounds like a ridiculously simple task. Our guy is known only as the sentinel. He actually volunteered to be sealed 7,000 meters underground in this specially designed vault. And his mission? Just watch a stone and write down any changes. That's it. For 10 years.
And just get a load of this environment. This vault wasn't just a room, it was basically an instrument, precision engineered to strip away all external reality. We're talking total absolute silence. Constant light, so there are no shadows, no sense of day or night, no time. And the walls were seamless, designed to remove even the idea of an exit. This place was built to isolate not just a man, but consciousness itself.
Meanwhile, on the outside, you've got the scientists, and they're watching everything. Their whole hypothesis? Well, they figured they were about to watch the predictable decay of a human mind in total isolation. This first field note shows exactly what they were thinking. Okay, he sees himself as separate from the stone. That's a good, healthy baseline. They even had a chart, predicting when his ego would start to break. Oh, they were so wrong.
The boundary dissolves. This is when the observer and the observed start to blur. Because here's the thing. As the years went by, the sentinel's mind didn't decay. Not at all. It expanded. That rigid boundary between him and the stone, the very foundation of how we see reality, it started to get soft. And then, it just began to dissolve.
And this was his first massive insight. He realized his observation wasn't passive. He wasn't just seeing the stone, he was actively participating in its existence. Which, of course, led him to this terrifying follow-up question. If he is creating his reality, then what or who is creating him?
And what's wild is that the sentinel's breakthrough has this direct and pretty startling parallel in quantum physics. It's called the Heisenberg cut. Basically, it's the idea that reality just exists as this wave of possibilities until an observer looks at it, and that very act of looking forces it into one single definite state. The sentinel was experiencing this not as some abstract theory, but as his minute-to-minute lived reality.
Now, this story about the spider is absolutely crucial. His lack of emotion, it wasn't him becoming a sociopath or something. No, it was a shift into what he called radical presence, a kind of witness consciousness that just observes reality without judging it, without preferring one thing over another. From that point of view, a spider dying and a stone just sitting there, they were just two things happening, equal, unfiltered.
This state of radical presence was all part of a much bigger process he was going through, decreation. You see, he wasn't losing his mind. He was patiently, methodically letting go of the performance of being a self. The vault, with no one else around, no one to perform for, was the perfect place to just stop pretending.
And this transformation wasn't some sudden snap. It was a slow, deliberate erosion over thousands of days alone. First, he abandons his logbook, his last real link to a narrative I. And then, on day 789, he utters those two critical words. That was the point of no return.
A universe in a stone, the moment of total ego dissolution. Okay, so this leads us right to the climax of his inner journey. After years of just watching, the sentinel has this unbelievably profound realization, a moment that completely shatters the very nature of his reality. Two simple words, I see. But this didn't mean he was just looking at something. It meant he finally truly understood. He recognized there was no boundary. There was no point where he, the observer, ended and the stone, the observed, began. There was only the seeing itself.
Meanwhile, the scientists on the outside, they're totally baffled and completely divided. You've got Dr. Venn saying this is a catastrophic mental breakdown, that the experiment is a total failure. But then Dr. Cole argues, no, this is the ultimate success. We've witnessed consciousness observing its own fundamental nature. This disagreement just shows how far beyond our known models the sentinel had gone.
Action without an actor. So how can a body function without a self?
This brings up a really fascinating paradox, right? If the I inside him has completely dissolved, how is his body still functioning? How can you have action if there's no actor in charge?
Well, this concept of egoless agency is the key. Think about catching a ball. Your hand just moves, way before you consciously decide to act. His entire being started to work like that. Actions weren't performed by him, they just happened through his body, as a pure, immediate response to reality, without that little voice in his head narrating and calculating everything.
The stone watches back, the final revelation of non-separation, and this all led to the final, and maybe the most mind-bending insight of his entire journey, the idea that observation was never a one-way street.
He realized he wasn't just observing the stone was observing him. It was like they were two mirrors facing each other, co-creating reality in this infinite loop of mutual recognition. There was no original self or original stone. There was only the continuous act of reflecting.
The wave returns. Extraction, observation, and an unanswered question. So after 10 long years, the experiment finally had to end. But bringing the sentinel out of the vault, well, that didn't provide any answers. It just created a deeper, more inexplicable mystery.
So after 10 years, the sentinel writes his final entry, 3 words, I am that. His unresponsive body is removed, and then the anomaly. The stone, which had been perfectly still for a decade, begins to move on its own. The very moment the observation was broken, reality itself started to shift.
Back on the surface, he's a living puzzle, a koan that defies all medicine. His body is stable, it's healthy, but the person who once lived there is gone. He's a body in the world, but not of it. He's present, yet totally absent.
But maybe the sentinel himself described it best. He didn't see this as an end, but as a kind of return. He said, the wave returns to ocean, the dream returns to dreamer, the aperture closes, the light continues.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering question. If the boundary between the sentinel and the stone was really just an illusion, and his act of watching was what held reality in place, then with him gone and the stone now moving, who or what is doing the watching now?